my peeps, and welcome back to Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves. This should be episode 49, which means after this we got 3 more until we are done with season 2. And we can start season 3 and ask some new questions. I am still your host, Ike, and before I make any more bold claims or odd sounds, I'd like to just take a moment and say thanks for being here and giving this pod a listen. It means a lot to me that you chose to use your precious time and give me and my guest your ears. If after you have done such a lovely act, you have the bandwidth and you've enjoyed this product, feel free to share this with a friend, or just subscribe. That'd mean a lot either way. So as you can tell, I'm a little bit out of breath and very much in a hurry. This is because I'm running late to catch my flight to RC Dallas, and also a haircut in lieu thereof, or before there. I don't know how to say Latin-y thingies. Anyway, yeah. So this is this intro is gonna be a little short and on the sweet side. Yeah, running late. Running late for a very expected date, and yet I'm still running late. I've got great friend and past guest of the podcast, Kyler Martin, getting me to the airport on time, which is very lovely. It means I don't have to find or pay for parking, and removes that annoyance from my life. Much appreciated, Kai. Yeah, I don't know. I've got a lot of nerves running up into this tournament, and very, as said in previous episode, very happy to get this over. In fact, as when this will come out, it'll already been over, and I'm sure you can find somewhere how I did, and or I'll tell you next week. Stay tuned. Or if you have any more questions about these circumstances, you can always message me at twitter.com/Ikes, or follow me there. I'll probably post how I did or what all happened. Maybe pictures of delicious food, as I will be in Dallas, Texas, where there is fantastic barbecue. Or you can always email me at passionandpeevespodcast@gmail.com. This week, I have a lovely guest that I'm actually met at a previous Magic tournament. Today's guest is CHAYSE, who I was so luckily paired against and had a lovely conversation at MXP Oakland back in April. So, without further ado, I guess. Okay, folks, today with me, I have a double corgi owner, drawer of the sword from the stone, and the littlest of wolves. It's CHAYSE!
I'm CHAYSE.
I draw sword stone. Corgi own me dog.
I think that makes me a king somewhere.
So, a little bit of background information, that you got to draw the sword from the stone while at Disneyland, right?
Yeah, when I was like, I don't know, probably like 10 or something like that. Like, I was a little kid.
Perfect ruling age.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought. But yeah, it's like this whole like event that they used to do there where, they have like the sword and the stone, and they have this guy dress up as Merlin come out, and he has this little stick, and he chooses someone, and then you go up and you pull a thing. And then you're king, and that's it. And that's how, that's how monarchy works, right?
Still a ruling king of Disneyland, hasn't been dethroned, bequeathed, or beheaded. But more importantly, what we need to know, CHAYSE, is what was your first concert and what was your best concert?
Ooh, that's hard. Well, the best is hard. But the first is easy. I remember that one.
I was like, neither of us are that old. It can't be that hard.
No. That one's easy. That half of the question, anyways. So my first concert was I saw Phantom Planet open for No Doubt and Blink-182 on Blink-182's self-titled tour. And I want to say that was like, I actually don't know when that was. When did that album come out?
Wait, sorry, give me the album again.
the self-titled.
Phantom Planet is Missing came out in 1998.
Let's see.
Phantom Planet, the album, came out in 2004.
So Blink-182's self-titled is 2003. So this is probably like 2004.
So that would have been their. It's weird that it's self-titled and it's their third album.
Yeah. One of their better, in my opinion. Yeah, it was a great experience. It was, I think, in I want to say it was like Concord Pavilion. It was like somewhere in the Bay Area, I think.
Nice.
But yeah, it was cool. I hadn't started playing drums yet, so to see Travis Barker do like this insane drum solo with like a broken foot, where like the whole drum set is like rotating as he's playing, was like pretty mind-boggling.
That's
and
awesome.
Cool. But then as for best, that is much more difficult.
If you can get it down to 2 or 3, I will accept.
Okay, fair enough. So I saw this band Dead to Me, who are from San Francisco, play at a venue called Bottom of the Hill in San Francisco. And that's like a iconic indie punk venue for the Bay Area. And we were in high school, and my friend who I was with was playing in a band at the time, and they had like their CDs, and we just happened to have one in our parents' car who had like drove us out, which was awesome, really supportive. But we got there super early, and we noticed the band was just like hanging out, and so like we like were talking to them about how my friend had this band. So like, oh, if you have a CD, go get us a CD. And so like we went, got him a CD, came back, gave it to them, and then kept talking, interacting, and then it was like time for the openers to come out. So we went up, got in front of the stage, and enjoyed like the opening bands. And then when Dead to Me started playing, at a certain point in the show, they pulled me up on stage. I actually did my first stage dive at that show. So like that was like one that like I remember. And also just like they were talking to us about like I guess like being in a band, and like kind of like I guess not exactly talking to us about their ethics of being a band, but like that's kind of the impression that was left. And then I don't know. I think that was pretty cool, and we ended up like bumping into them just like around town after that.
Sweet.
So yeah, it was like a cool thing.
I'm looking at I'm looking at the venue, and it's kind of a little reminiscent. So, future spoiler for it's not even a spoiler. What am I talking about? So I just bought like my first concert ticket in probably like 6 years or something like that. I'm not that much of a concert goer, but a friend of mine is going to see this low key band called Prep at the Troubadour here in Los Angeles, and I decided to go with him. And I was looking at the venue because I knew it was iconic, and I was looking at the venue. I didn't realize how small it was, and now I'm looking at Bottom of the Hill, and it's like even smaller. I didn't know it's literally just it's a double townhouse like turned into a concert hall, right? Like basically, yeah.
Yeah, it's very small. But like, I mean, just growing up in Central California and then moving out to the Bay Area, like I've seen so many amazing shows there, and
that's sweet.
A lot because it's so small and intimate. A lot of the time, you'll bump into the band members and you can chat with them. And I was lucky enough that my band Joy Press got to play Bottom of the Hill as like the last show we played in the Bay Area before we left and moved north to Portland. So like
that's fucking beautiful. So like such a great, just like come full circle. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it felt like we were like, stepping on probably the closest thing we had to like holy ground at that point.
I mean, holy ground is what you make it, right? That's rarefied air. That is, sanctity right there. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so that was a really cool experience. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just leave it at that.
Yeah, so good. Speaking of leaving it at that, do you have a favorite movie line that you like to quote?
Ooh. I don't. Nothing comes to mind. I don't intentionally quote any movies often. I'm sure I do, just like not consciously, you know.
Right now, he's just quoting the artist. But
Yeah.
for any of you that knows, the last probably famous silent film that was made. What's your favorite meal to make just for yourself, assuming cost and time are not relevant factors?
Ooh. Um. Well, I'm gonna kind of cheat a little and say that for me, cooking is definitely not a passion I have. But when I do cook, I like to make, or the dishes I tend to like to make are larger portioned. And I think that's because I really enjoy cooking for like a group of friends and like having it be more of like a social event.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that being said, the dishes that I feel like I've gotten good at, I do really enjoy. So in this theoretical world where I'm just making like a one portion serving, um, there is uh, green and red enchiladas, I think, are the thing I probably do the best. And it's just like a family recipe that's been kind of passed down that I had to like watch my aunts make to process how to actually do it myself. Because when I tried to ask them for a recipe, they're like, "Oh, well, like a little bit of this and some of that," and it's like that's
Oh
not
yeah,
helpful.
that's like cooking with my mom. She's just like, "Oh yeah, I do this for a little while." I'm like, "How long's a little while?" She's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
you know." I'm like, "No, I fucking don't. That's
yeah,
why I'm
yeah.
asking."
Just do it till it feels right. It's like, yeah, but it all feels wrong, and then it's burnt.
Exactly. I love that from an aesthetic, from like looking at it and talking to people that do that. But when you want to then like make the family dish, there is nothing more infuriating than it be just like folksy wisdom and non-existent numbers. God,
Yeah,
that's so infuriating.
yeah. So when I went home to finally learn how to make red enchiladas, I had my like I had like a little notebook, like a pad
Mm.
of paper, so I could like take notes as I was watching them, and I had my phone out so that I could set timers, so I didn't even have to ask them for that.
Genius.
Yeah, and I just sat there in the kitchen and just watched for a while.
You were doing your own like reconnaissance.
Yeah, yeah, and on top of that, when I finally came back to Portland to make it, I thankfully my girlfriend is a good sport and sat through 3 bad nights of the same dish in a row.
Oh, what a
Um,
saint.
yeah, and then by the fourth night, I felt like I had done well enough to where I was like feeling satisfied and could stop making it.
Well, while we're on the topic of food, who's someone you've never met, alive or dead, that you'd like to have lunch with?
Ooh, mm, I feel like I answered this question recently, and um, I can't remember what I said.
Well, I'll accept a
Um,
new answer in lieu of the old answer.
sure, yeah. So uh, over the last couple of years, I've started reading more Stoic writings. So I'll say Marcus Aurelius.
Ooh. Where you taking Marcus? What's he need to taste? There's so much that he's missed out on culinarily speaking.
Um, I don't even know. I feel like it would be like just like um, finger food, like something like really small tapas or something, you know?
On the plus side, you would get a 10 out of 10 with your red enchiladas. You could not make it wrong enough that he wouldn't be like blown away.
That's true. Maybe I would, yeah, maybe I would just sit him down and make him a fine meal. I
This
just
is
feel like
the
I would,
best dining in the world. Trust me, don't go outside.
I feel like I would just have so many questions and just want to hear, more of his ideas. So I probably wouldn't want to like
You wouldn't want to be
eat.
busy cooking. You'd want to be
Yeah,
busy just like watching his mouth move intently.
yeah.
What inanimate object, speaking of friends, would you want to be best friends with were it sentient?
Ooh, I think my car. I know that's probably like a cheap answer, but
No.
um, I feel like it's not even that I have like an amazing car. It's also not the worst car in the world. But at this point, I've had um to fix enough things on it or had weird things happen to it to where it's like I feel like it's my own because of that, and
Nice. Yeah.
it's also like gotten even as it's like breaking down will get me to at least like the exit ramp, so I could assess. So yeah, I'm gonna say my car.
What year, make, model?
I have an '09 Subaru Impreza.
Nice.
Yeah, that
All right, so you're very impressed with the Subaru?
pretty impressive. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
I love how you didn't groan, you just immediately doubled down on my shit joke.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you, yeah, I'll triple down if necessary.
You want a bad joke off? I got you covered. So actually, you just reminded me. There was at one point in my life where probably the car that I would have been most likely best friends with, although I do love my Kia that I currently have. I had this Volvo station wagon that was gifted to me by my now late grandmother, who it was like she gave it to me as like a you're a man now and need a car, I guess. I didn't earn it by any means. And I ventured out into the world until it, just died. But I wish I could have that seat back. It cradled my neck so perfectly, like no other car seat ever has. But at one point there was some engine issues because it was like 300,000 miles. And anytime you slowed down to below, I think like 20 miles an hour, the engine would just be like, fuck it, and just turn off. So I got way too good at every time I went to work when I lived up in Humboldt County, engine would die out and I could coast from the highway through a roundabout, a left turn, and park it in a spot, which I should is not safe. But like I did it for like a month straight to where it was never a concern at that point. Like at one point I figured out how to stop it from happening most of the time, where I just put it in neutral, kind of kept it revving above 30 RPM or whatever like that, and like finagled it like a race car driver. And then at one point I just got like way too comfortable doing that. Like, all right, it's dead, and it was like I felt like Sully landing on the Hudson. I was like, got this, and just woo, and just like did all the trick moves. It was stupid.
No, I mean it's like that feeling exactly. Like I know just by driving the way my car feels when the oil is low, and that's not normal. Like most people just have like.
I mean that isn't, but that is impressive. Jesus Christ.
So stuff like that, or like
when the girl's thirsty.
Yeah, I'll know to pull over and like lift the hood for a little and just like let it chill. And it's like it's not even a break. It's not even that bad all the time. It's just I got this like sixth sense of when I'm on the border of pushing it a little too much.
That's amazing. Does the car have a name, or would it need to be given a name were it to become sentient?
Yeah, I would have to name it. I actually never got around to naming it. I'm really indecisive. I have this like little like plastic polar bear that a friend gave to me many years ago. I think actually a full car ago. And that's the only thing that survived from the old car. That and like a couple like Nujabes like mix CDs.
A man of class, I see.
Yeah, exactly. And that polar bear's name is Terrence. But other than that, there's nothing else named about my car.
Good old Terrence, keeping it down.
Yeah, I like to think Terrence is like the source of like good juju that has kept the car going.
He's the co-pilot that just kind of like snores. He's like, like, why do you keep him around? He's just good luck. I don't
know. He's always listening.
Yeah. He's the Woodstock to your Snoopy.
Yeah, exactly. Do
you have a life hack you'd like to share with the class to improve their daily living?
A life hack? Yeah, I mean, I used to joke about in a previous job how much I would when I'd be asked something. If it was a bit too technical, I would just go Google it, and then figure it out from there. And I think that's my life hack, is just like learning how to use certain keywords and phrasing to like figure out the thing you're trying to figure out to answer the question. Because more often than not, there's someone on the internet has asked like that really oddly specific question that you're looking to answer. Half the time it's like a Reddit post.
The other half the time it's a YouTube post.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and sometimes there's even a video tutorial of like someone with their phone struggling through it. So that is that's, I guess, one of the life hacks that I would share. Another one, actually, I'm gonna give two. And this is one I learned recently, which is when when I felt like worked up, or I feel like the sky is falling around me over whatever it is, just like asking yourself, like, what is the worst case scenario right now? Like, what is my worst case scenario? What's the worst result that I could get from this thing? Just like almost as a way to like recenter yourself in the actual scenario you are in, and try to strip away some of the, I guess, anxiety you might be causing yourself over something that has not come to pass and honestly might never.
The only problem I have with that second one, it's a good one, but I don't want to be like, my brain's so much bigger, but my brain always remembers that at any time you could just have an aneurysm for no reason, and there's nothing a doctor can do, and you're just gonna die.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So my thought is always like, what's the worst that could happen? I can have an aneurysm and die.
But if you're dead, there's no more suffering. So is that really the worst case scenario? Because you're still not worrying about the thing you're worrying about. It sounds like you hacked
this before you even ask yourself that question.
Like I said, I've been reading some Stoicism.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, with the first one, I totally identify. I went to California University of Monterey Bay.
Okay, cool.
And
it's a beautiful campus.
Yeah.
Beautiful surrounding area?
Beautiful surrounding area. Once you go about like 5 clicks south, it's gorgeous. It's not technically in Monterey Bay, so it's not actually that beautiful. It's in like a sand lot that is seaside California. Isn't a bad town or anything like that, but it is just like really just like sandy. And as I grew up around sand, living in rural Nevada, I've seen enough for a lifetime. I'm good. But the university is tremendous, and the faculty in the film program, which is what I studied there, was rad. They were super nice. And one of the upperclassmen, and very much was reiterated by multiple professors I had as the semesters went on, was like, look, we're going to teach you how to do stuff. You're going to forget about it. You just need to remember how to do one thing, which is find it. And so, and like a lot of professors were like, just YouTube this shit. Somebody out there has done this. They're going to show you how. And they were right. And word to the wise, and this is going to be a weird mixed bag tool to kind of unbuckle, is that you want, when you are looking for an instruction, you want the person that speaks the most broken English to be telling you it. The more they sound like your neighbor, the more they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I cannot tell you how many times I was like, how do I do this? And it was like, all right, bros, what we're going to do is make a video and Avid. I'm like, okay, cool. And then like an hour later, I'm like, I learned fucking nothing except this guy surfs. Like, this is useless. And then I find a 3-minute video, and I'm not going to do the accent, where it's just like I have to put on the CCs to understand what this guy from, I'm guessing, is Bangladesh is talking about. But in 3 minutes, he solved not only that problem, but the 5 others that I didn't know I was going to have in half an hour. So look for those guys. Do not look for Chad. Look for a guy whose name you can't pronounce. He 100% has the right answer. Especially like, and you can also just follow view count, but I mean, like, that's my trick to finding the person that knows what the fuck they're talking about. It's not the guy that looks like your neighbor.
My trick is to usually just go into the comments and see what the top 2 or 3 is, and if it's like 3 people calling bullshit,
You're
then
like,
you
dip.
probably just saved yourself 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes, that is also a great one. What media, whether it be book, graphic novel, TV show, or movie, have you been putting off that is next on your to consume list that you just can't wait to break open?
Ooh. I recently did go through a graphic novel phase, so it's definitely not that, although I do like that form of media. I feel like there's always an album that I need to listen to that either someone recommended to me or I like stumbled upon somehow and like bookmarked or saved to my liked and like just haven't gone back. I'm really terrible about listening to things that people recommend to me. It takes me like 12 years to get around to it. But having appreciated that about myself with Spotify now, I usually make a point when someone tells me to listen to something, I go in and I add it to a recommended playlist. That way, when I just want to listen to something new, I can just start with that playlist. So that's been a good hack, I guess, to get me to do things eventually. I'm really bad about reading consistently. I think I wanted to dive into some sci-fi a while back, and so like the most consistent I was reading was reading through the first Dune book, which was great. Made seeing the movie. I mean, I would have enjoyed the movie either way, but it gave me some additional context that was like felt like extras. But yeah,
What's
not
it?
great.
Look at your Spotify real quick. What's the song in your liked, or like what's the most? Is there like an album or an artist that's repeated twice?
As far as like the liked stuff?
No. The like two. You said you have like a to listen to like playlist.
Oh, right now there is a lot of Aphex Twin.
There we go. Aphex Twin. Got it.
Yeah. I've his catalog is just so massive. It's like kind of been hard to really dive into. So I've gone back to the friend who recommended so much of it and just been like, look, man, just like give me a album. Like if I could only pick one, like what album would I pick?
It looks like it's Drux. Drux? I mean, I think it's their most recent album. Their biggest 2 played songs are like 2 of their most popular songs are from that album.
Yeah. So
if you were a condiment, which do you think you'd be?
Ooh. Don't know if this counts, but Taco Bell Diablo sauce.
It absolutely counts, and that's a fucking awesome answer.
Yeah. Can we start a campaign for them to sell it in the bottle? Because that would make my life easier.
I mean, I have the same problem with La Victoria up in the Bay Area, so I feel like
that sauce is it's fucked up.
That sauce is so fucking busted. I love it.
Last time I was in San Jose, we were trying to decide what to eat, and we had this quote unquote problem where we were going to a brewery that had no food, and I found out at that point that you can actually get it delivered through whatever app now, and that was a huge game changer. And yeah, I definitely bought a bottle of sauce just in case they weren't going to send sides of it, which fun fact, they do, or at least they did that time.
They do, but they usually, depending upon how much sauce you like, sometimes they'll be a little squeamish and a little reserved how much they send.
But yeah, that is a great sauce.
For those of you in the Bay Area, go to La Victoria, buy the orange sauce. Yeah. You can eat somewhere else. The food there is fine. The sauce is what everybody goes for. If we're being real, nobody goes there to eat the food. The food's like fine. The sauce is busted. It's so weird.
Yeah, sauce is completely busted. But like the meats in the food also fantastic.
Yeah, so. It's a very serviceable taqueria, but you're in San Jose, so there's like ones that are better, but no place has a better sauce. You can just eat there. The food is fine. The sauce is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Actually, I have a funny story about the Diablo sauce as well from Taco Bell.
Send it. Let's go.
We had just moved this past move, and we, when you move, you don't have anything set up, so that was justification for us to get Taco Bell the first night we're in our new place, and it was super late, so I had to go across town to a Taco Bell that we don't normally go to. which, everyone who has their home Taco Bell, it's hard to deviate, but we had to. And so we get our order, and we didn't order a lot of food, but when they gave us the bag, it was like in the biggest bag that they have, which was kind of strange.
Mm-hmm.
And when they handed it to me, I had to like the guy was like gesturing like hold it on the underside too. And I was like, okay. Like I thought he was just like fucking with me.
Yeah.
And so I did it anyways, and it was like heavy. Like the bag felt full. And I was like, oh, this is kind of odd. So I hand my girlfriend the bag, and then we kind of take off. And then I'm like, is that just like full of free food, or are they like messing with us?
Yeah.
And so she opens it, and it's just like full of sauce. It's like full of Diablo sauce. Like it had our like 4 items on top.
Yeah.
And then I mean that we ended up saving most of that sauce, and we just like had it.
Yeah.
And that lasted us like a long time. Like I think it just recently like ran out, and that was like 2 years ago.
Oh my god.
So
gotta save her.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That's so rad. Well, sorry, I'm just realizing like my brain is spinning in circles. You had said earlier to an earlier question that you had just recently like read a graphic novel. What graphic novel did you just finish up reading?
Most recently, I read the 4th book in the In-Call series, if you're familiar with that.
I am not. INCALL?
It's called The In-Call, and it's INCAL. And that was recommended to me, same guy that recommended all the Aphex Twin. But he made this recommendation for the In-Call after I let him borrow Akira. I love the animated film when I was younger. I didn't understand any of the context at all. So rewatching it a couple times as an adult was quite the trip. But yeah, I finally decided to read it because someone once told me that like I want to say there's like 8 books in that series, and the movie is only the first book.
So did the movie come out already? Or
for Akira?
Oh no, you're talking about Akira. I thought you were talking about In Call.
No, the movie's not out yet, and that's a new development where
yeah, Taika Waititi's helming it.
Yeah, it's gonna be insane.
Yeah, it's got Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. Yeah, he had me at hello. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I would say like on the whole, the series is probably I want to say like 7 out of 10, but I think the first book is probably a 9, if not a 10. And recently they released a like 4th book that's technically a prequel that was, I want to say like 8.5.
Are you talking about before the In-Call, or no, the final In-Calls? Are you talking about?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. That's the one that came out in 2008. Yeah, sounds right. All right, back to their regularly scheduled programming. What life lessons do you wish you learned sooner?
So this is related to my peeve, which is
spoilers.
Yeah. It's okay. The lesson that I wish I had learned sooner is that it's okay to not know, like to not know the answer, to not know what's being asked of you, and then the power of saying I don't know, and then being open for any subsequent information you might be given.
Stop reading my diary, please, sir.
No, I mean, if you'd stop publishing it, I mean, it'd make it easy.
Yeah, that's a great life lesson, and one that's hard to adhere to, especially if you're used to, like, how old are you? I'm 35. You're about
32.
Okay, about the same age. I feel like in the timeline that we grew up in, it was very much like go with your opinions, pretend like you know something, bullshit, and then like stand your ground was like a very common, like when we grew up, I feel like that was a very common like way of approaching social interactions. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, I mean, even the phrase, fake it till you make it is like part of that, right? Or from that. So yeah, I would say very much. And you almost never wanted to say I don't know out of fear of being the dumbest person in the room,
exactly.
Or the idea that you were the only person that didn't know.
Yeah, or admitting at least that you were the dumbest person, like, because everybody else was as dumb as we were, they just were like, well, I know. And like, none of us did. It's like conjuring up bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like not being able to say I don't know, it like prevents you from closing those gaps.
Yeah.
So that is something that I try to be very vocal about even now today. I for work I work in product development, and I'm usually on calls with people that are way more technically inclined than I am, and I've had people ask me like, oh, like how do you even like communicate with those people? And it's like I just listen so I can learn. Like if I don't know, I just shut up and listen. It's really easy.
All you have to do is swallow your pride.
Yeah, I would much rather be the person listening and trying to learn something on a call rather than being the person that's saying something wrong just because I'm afraid to say that I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It is like really hard though, I have found at least in the last couple of years. And it's something that's very groundbreaking. It's just like you said, like to learn, you have to admit that you don't know and like swallow your pride. You can't be like, I know this, but tell me more. Like it's like a paradox. You have to just be like, I don't know this. Tell me what this is. And to like do that, given like our framework of growing up, is like it is such a barrier that once you do step over and like, you know, get used to being in, is like feasible. But that first step is so fucking hard.
Oh yeah, it's impossible. Some people live their whole lives and never cross that threshold enough to ever be comfortable with it, right?
Yeah. It's like, but once you can, I very much feel where you're coming from. It's like, it is so empowering. You learn so much. You get to drop that guard and that guise of being like, I know everything. You know, like you don't, you no longer have to be this like monolith of a human being that is like not omnipotent, but, you know, presents themselves as such. And you get to just be the guy who, you know, you get to level up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also really good and you know, strong for your own mental state, because that like kind of like pulls that pressure out of, you know, whatever weight you're carrying around on your shoulders, saying like, I cannot fail, I cannot admit that I don't know. And it's like all that's completely internal. Like no one else is, or that's not entirely true. There are plenty of scenarios where that weight is put on you by external forces.
Yeah.
But the biggest piece of that, the thing you have the most power and control over, is like what has been internalized and what has kind of come from you from those ideas. So being able to take that first step and say, yeah, I don't know. And just being okay with that is really powerful, I think.
Well, moving from life lessons to favorite hated things, what's your favorite non-exercise thing you have to force yourself to do?
Wake up. Is that too dark?
No, dreams are dope. Getting out of bed and like doing like that is my biggest struggle, is getting from the bed to the desk chair so that I can like, or from the bed to the kitchen to like make a cup of coffee. That is like, those are the biggest steps of my day by a mile. So I absolutely like 100% know where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's so bad that I admittedly do not like napping, because that just means I have to wake up again.
That's so great.
And yeah, I don't know. I just don't like the process. I just feel groggy and just like tired. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a full-blown caffeine addict, and will be for forever probably. That's actually one of the when we were talking about like the idea of like removing something from your routine for like a week to see how you feel. The one thing I couldn't do was caffeine. I felt like I just wanted to die by day 3, and I was like, I can't do it. But yeah, not a fan of waking up. And even like now, I'm lucky enough, I've kind of transitioned roles to where I work from home, and or at least most of the time. And it's like I can't even imagine having to get out of bed and like prepare myself for the outside world and like be in another place where I have to be responsible by like 8 a.m. or earlier, like I just
Yeah.
like I couldn't do it. For a while, I was even before I left San Francisco, I was working East Coast time, and I would
Ugh.
see the sun come up uh, over the hills in the East Bay from my desk like every day, and it's like I don't know how I did that. Like I'm barely awake at like 8:30 most days now. It's like I don't know how I did it.
What's your favorite non-traditional curse word?
Um, I think when I get really irritated about random things, usually driving, I just end up throwing out random insults, and I think one that has become a default is referring to someone as a thumb. And I didn't even notice that
A
I was doing
thumb?
it. Yeah. And I didn't even notice that I was doing it until my girlfriend pointed it out, like, why do you say that? I'm just like, I don't know.
That's so great. You're a thumb. Wait, do you call them a thumb? Like, do you refer to them like metaphorically? Or are you like, you thumb? Or is it like,
Yeah,
you're a thumb?
like that person's being a fucking thumb. And there's always still a curse there. It's not like I'm like
Yeah.
substituting it out to not
Yeah.
have a curse. It's usually just like a complimentary thing. Um, but yeah, I also
My brother has his favorite one that's kind of in the same variety, except not nearly as creative, where he calls people Muppets,
oh,
but it's
that's
from his
great.
love of British cinema.
Yeah, that's good. um, and then I think another weird phrase that I actually picked up from a roommate in college is "back the fun bus, the fun up." And like I don't know where he picked that up from. But he said it often enough to where it just kind of like became part of my vocabulary every now and then. And there's actually been times where I've like said it like in meetings, and everyone on the
Back the
call,
fun bus, the fun up.
yeah, people are just like,
Wow.
"What did you just say?"
I'm sorry. Our internet connection must have like had a spasm and died. It sounded like you just said nonsense in third grade language. Care to repeat that, Chase? No, we're good.
It's like, no, you heard me, and I meant it.
And I meant every word. Uh, well, while we're on the topic of fun, you're going out to a party and you want to look radical. Other than your normal garb, what accessory would you add to your ensemble?
Um, I feel like the accessory that I put more effort into than zero is the shoes I wear. I'm not by any means a sneakerhead,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I do like when I see a pair of shoes I think are cool. Like you know, like I'll try to keep them nice for a little bit longer. Try to keep them out of corgi reach, things of that nature.
Do you go full blown and get like a special toothbrush and like kind of clean them up so they still got like the sides are still like factory shine or
I wish I was that responsible. I have fantasies about being that responsible with my things. I'm just not. um, but I do try to keep them, you know, if something like spills on them or something, like I'll wipe them off, obviously. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I'm not that together. But I just feel like I don't have a really great sense of style, but I usually can match a shirt with a pair of shoes, and like that's like worlds better than like my average day. So like that's me trying.
Styling.
Yeah.
I do the same. I try to do the same with my my hats. Uh,
I've noticed you are a hat connoisseur.
I have a problem. I don't connoisseur makes it sound like I've got this
Sounds like you don't have a problem. It sounds like you're a connoisseur.
I'm a connoisseur with a collection that is overburdening his abode. But yes, thank you. I do my best and I have a veritable cornucopia with which to match. Also before anybody starts thinking that I know what the hell I'm talking about when it comes to shoes, the reason I know anything about the whole like toothbrush thing is because I watched She's Gotta Have It by Spike Lee, and there's a character that's doing that in the movie, which like light bulb went off in my head, because I've seen and had friends with like the cleanest looking sneaks that I've ever seen, and on the regular, I'm just like, how the fuck? I guess they just don't. They watch where they step. They clearly must. And then I saw that scene. I was like, oh, fuck me. Of course they just clean their clothes. They effectively clean their gear. Duh. It's like so obvious.
The one thing that I will say I probably should do, and at the recommendation of my girlfriend, is there's like a spray that you could hit your shoes with that is just like it's almost like a protective barrier with
Scotch
like
guard.
water and dirt and stuff. Sure, yeah.
I don't know if that's
Is that what
actually
it's
the
called?
case.
I don't know.
I know people will use that on couches in like dorms so that like it doesn't get like ratchet like particularly quickly and or ever. I don't know if it's good for shoes or even good for couches.
Yeah, I don't know what the spray is, but I've heard of this mythological spray, and maybe it's not even a thing that you're supposed to do. Maybe it completely ruins your shoes. Like I said, I'm not a proper sneakerhead. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I just know, like, when I see something cool, I'm just like, yeah, I'll buy that.
It's probably like what is it, Armor All for like Armor All has this spray or something like that you can put on your dash and makes it look like factory new, but it's kind of apparently like lip balm in that you have to, after that first application, apply it for otherwise your like dash will just like deteriorate. It'll like crack and break.
Oh, geez.
So I'm curious if like that spray is kind of like that, where it's just like, yes, this totally does that, as long as you apply it forever and give us your life savings. You're like,
yeah,
cool.
It totally works. We own your soul now. Nothing. It's fine.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just sign on the dotted line, please. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Speaking of signing on dotted lines, who would you want to play you in a movie of your life? You can choose the time period of your life that is showcased and the time period of the actor, if they perhaps looked more like you, say, back when.
I think Superbad era, like Jonah Hill, nailed my I guess like college phase, as far as like the balance of being like pretty awkward and not cool, but trying to be cool and interesting. So yeah, I'm gonna say that.
And then that same version of Jonah Hill could also play me right now. No, he really did nail it. That is still one of the most like iconic, like youthful characters I think it's ever been brought to stage. Is this guy that's trying to be cool, isn't cool, but won't believe that he's not cool, all the while trying to be cool and not being cool. It's like, it's perfection. Yeah,
except I will add an asterisk there. I very much was aware of how awkward I was.
You were Jonah Hill that looked in the mirror. You're just like,
yeah.
What poor man luxury do you still enjoy to this day?
I mean, Taco Bell is the first thing that like jumps to my mind.
What's your go-to Taco Bell order?
Whatever comes in a box and is less than $7.
All right, that sounded way more sad than saying your poor man luxury was Taco Bell. You sounded like the cheapest whore that's ever gone to. Let's have her $7 and comes in a box. like, all right, Jesus, lady, you're bumming everybody out. Please leave.
Something that's pretty fucked up that I discovered recently, thanks to a terrible group of friends I have, is Taco Bell now has an app, and they've actually gamified your Taco Bell ordering, which is terrible. That's something like I did not need that. I don't need a point system attached to these bad decisions I make.
For a second there, I was like, gamified? Like you have to like beat a level to order your food? That sounds like bad business. Like,
it's the opposite. You get rewarded the more you use it.
What's a job, speaking of Taco Bell, that at some point in your life you wanted to pursue but are very glad you didn't?
So when I moved to Portland, I moved without a lot of savings. I think what I had in my I think what I had in my bank account doesn't even qualify as savings because it was basically money that was already spent,
Oh, so my savings account. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. You know what's up. And so I moved without any job career opportunities whatsoever. So it was like the first like 4 months I went back to actually, I was, for a while I was in the Bay Area in college, just to have extra walking around cash, I would sling cardboard, and I would just like try to spec on magic cards low and then try to sell them a little bit higher.
Love it.
So when I moved to Portland, I started doing that again. And then obviously looking for employment opportunities. And there were several jobs that like I would go to the interview, have the interview, and the person that was speaking to me would like reach across the table and be like, hand out like, it's yours, you want it? And anytime that happened, I was like immediately hesitant because it was like, why? You seem too eager, like you're almost trying to give something away that you don't want.
Yeah.
And so I think there was probably like 4 or 5 jobs where I could have taken the opportunity, and I decided not to. And I felt really dumb every time because, to my earlier point, I did not have money. There was one thing I really do regret is because of that, I was kind of reaching the end of my cash flow, and I had to sell a volcanic island to pay rent that month. And thankfully, it was like the next month I ended up getting a job. And then that job was terrible, and I only worked it for the first 2 weeks again so I could make rent and then focus again on trying to find a different job.
What was the job that you quit after 2 weeks?
It was a call center for a
I don't think you need to say much more than that.
Yeah, it was like no, it gets darker. It was like for like roofing and like side paneling of houses, and specifically the area that I was working in, they would call like the sweepstakes team, or something along those lines. And your job was to call people, typically elderly people, who had signed up for a sweepstakes, some contest, and not tell them they had won, but hey, so you signed up for this thing, right? And obviously they'd be like, yes, like excited.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd basically walk them into like a sales pitch, and it was awful.
That sounds very cancerous.
Yeah, no, it was terrible. And like I thought it was done out of irony at first, but they had those motivational posters, like
Mm-hmm.
they had those all around the office, but they had them printed on canvas, and it was like not trying to be ironic, like it was like real.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that to me was like kind of fucked up. Yeah, that's one job that I was I remember I was talking to my best friend and bassist when I was thinking about quitting, and he was like, well, I kind of can hear it in your voice. I feel like your decision's already made up. You should just quit. And like I did, and like immediately, like it just felt like, it felt really good.
All right. Well, lastly, before we close out this segment, if you could have listeners of this podcast hear one song of your choosing, which would it be?
Again, this is probably one of the most difficult questions because I really don't like recommending songs. I almost always prefer to recommend like an album, just so if whoever I'm recommending it to can like really get into the idea of the band or whatever the music I'm recommending, unless I'm making a playlist, obviously. But if I had to recommend a song, say Waiting Room by Fugazi. It's the first song off the first album that I listened to from them, and I don't think Fugazi is a band that people are not going to know. Like I'm not trying to recommend some unknown like cool band.
Yeah.
But for me, that band and that album particularly were this is very impactful, and it gave me exposure to ideas and worldviews that I hadn't had exposure to quite yet, and so that's why I recommend that song.
Love it. All right. Well, with that, we're going to throw it to our first break. Feel free to stick around and enjoy this totally real commercial, or take a minute to enjoy Waiting Room by Fugazi. Or if you really wanted to hear a song from a previous episode, check out the playlist on Spotify, Passionate People and Preposterous Beefs podcast, Song Rex. It's a long title, I know. Don't worry, there's a link in the description. Either way, see you in a jiffy. Have you ever just looked at fried carbs on a plate and thought, I need to eat those, but it doesn't taste all that appetizing? Introducing catsup. Catsup is a sugary and red syrupy paste that'll overshadow any unappreciated taste. Simply douse the unpreferred tasting object and ingest. Mmm. Thanks, catsup. And we're back. So, Chase, what's your passion that you've brought with you today?
I would say my passion that I can't really seem to get away from in life has been music in some form. From just being a listener from a young age and being kind of keyed into like noticing the songs on the radio that I liked more than others, to eventually being old enough to like have interests in guitar lessons and stuff like that. Eventually that led me to wanting to play the drums, and then eventually wanting to actually play drums in bands. So that led to playing in bands, managing bands, booking shows, tours.
How many instruments do you play?
I would say I mean, really, I only say I play the drums because that's the only instrument that I would feel comfortable enough playing in front of a group of people. But I learned how to play the guitar pretty rusty. I've tried to become more familiar with playing bass. And then during COVID, because, no shows were happening whatsoever, I started learning more about music theory, and as a way to learn that better, I tried to learn I started taking piano lessons as well.
Doing it in the very reverse order, like ending back on piano lessons. Everybody I know started with piano lessons. Love it.
I wish I had started with piano at a young age, and actually there was a point in college where I took a piano class. And I had a really great instructor, but their whole approach was like, look, if you're just here for an easy A, I'll write you an A, like no problem, just don't be a disruption. But if you actually want to learn an instrument, if you want to learn something, then you're going to have to put in work and pay attention.
Shut up and sit down.
Basically.
What did you go to school for? What was your major study?
Yeah, so my major was general biology. And that's what it says on the nice piece of paper that I paid a lot of money for, and I've used it a whole 0 times.
So far, same. So I feel you. Other than being like, I do in fact have a degree, and they're like, that's good enough. I'm like, do you guys want to know what it's for? They're like, good enough, cool.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you did something for an amount of years?
Yeah.
All right, cool, good enough for us. It's like, all right, I mean, I guess that works.
I don't know if I would have gotten my job if I listed out the curriculum that I had to go to, because I got a degree in film, which anybody else got one from a non hyper expensive school. It's basically a series of fuck off classes, so I don't know if it counts. But I'm glad I got it. Boy howdy. Rewinding the clock a lot, you said your first instrument was guitar, right?
Yeah. I took guitar, like private guitar lessons growing up. I think 13. Like, yeah, around the age that I realized like playing music had this like coolness associated with it. And like also just like the thing that I felt like I was like nodding my head to and like kind of like pick up from songs was, the guitar riff.
It's always the guitar riffs, yeah. You are a white American kid who likes rock music. It's always the guitar riffs. Exactly.
Yeah. Fit nicely into that pigeonhole.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like I'm always reminded of that anytime like talking to white guy who got into music. It's always guitar. And I'm reminded of that Dave Chappelle bit from the Chappelle Show where he's got John Mayer on. They're going around playing music at different places, and the white people always respond to the like rock guitar. Yeah, dead on. Like that's what white people like, rock music. You got us. Like it was just like it was a perfect bit. Like he just nailed that stereotype. I was like, yeah, that's us. We like me some rock guitar. I tell you, Elvis wasn't famous with us for no reason. We dug it.
Yeah,
So
when he had John Mayer on, those pretty good. John Mayer actually, I found out, has like a pretty good sense of humor, which was like, I mean, I don't really listen to his music, but like some of the hijinks that he would pull, I found pretty amusing.
yeah, it's got a good sense of humor, and apparently listening to like really well respected musicians is also just busted
He
when it
is.
comes to like he is
Yeah.
just like like if you can dislike his music, but he as a musician he is just like absurdly talented. This is
Yeah.
like unreal good.
Yeah, he is like just yeah, insane guitarist. Another fun fact, at one point we really randomly um, opened up for, or I guess we didn't open up for, but we're playing the same venue. And it was like a co-show with one of his like backing guitarists.
Oh, cool.
I think his name was like Zane or something weird like that.
Sure.
Dude was dressed wildly. But he was super nice and also an insane musician. And it's
Oh,
like
that's
that
cool.
guy, like you're second string to someone, like that is insane. But yeah, it was funny because it's just like,
It's like it's like
very
playing a
different
pickup
crowds.
game with like Scottie Pippen. You're like, someone's better than you? Like, how is that possible? Like,
Yeah. Also, it was just like one of those moments where we were like, why are we here? Like, why are we playing? Like, why are we like opening for this guy?
yeah. Don't question it. Just play and keep your heads down. So, 13 years old, we're trying out guitar. What was the music? What was the music that got you into guitar? Do you remember any like bands at that time where you're just like, oh, I just want to be this guy. I want to sound like this. You tried copying their songs, maybe even.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the earliest like pieces of music that I remember like actively seeking out and wanting my own copy of was Dookie by Green Day.
Man of class. Starting
yeah.
off with Dookie by Green Day. Jesus.
Yeah, that little blue tape, like I've had several copies just because like I would wear it out from like listening to it so much.
So pure. Can't do that on Spotify.
Yeah, exactly. Thankfully. But yeah, I would say like Green Day was probably one of the early formative bands to have like a really major impact. And then from there, I think it was like, yeah, like in middle school when I met my best friend who would eventually become also my bassist for this band. We bonded over us both liking Green Day, and like he had kind of been introduced to other kind of like had a broader taste in music at that time. So he was like, "Oh, have you heard of this band called Nirvana?" And so it's just kind of like, branched out to other places from there. I was lucky enough to get introduced to bands like The Replacements and The Clash like pretty early on too. And that kind of led to like Minor Threat, Black Flag, kind of early hardcore punk bands. And then it was kind of along that same trajectory that I was introduced to Fugazi. And it was like one of the early, I guess, intros to a punk band that was like, punk doesn't have to fit this like angry anarchist kind of stereotype.
Yeah.
It can be a lot more thought provoking and intentional with the ideas being communicated. So yeah.
You just kind of reminded me of, so I work at a charter school that's very much for kids that this is kind of like their last opportunity to like get an education. And there was a teacher the other day trying to explain poetry to a student. And I watched them get in the hang up of trying to explain it, make it understandable, and then realizing poetry has no definition. I'll be like, yeah, it rhymes. Well, it doesn't have to rhyme. But then it doesn't have to do that either. And they just kept realizing that there's no rules. It's just the fuck. And it's like you're talking about punk. It's like, it doesn't have to be that. It's like, yeah, punk doesn't have to be anything. Like you can call anything punk and you're not technically wrong.
Yeah, I'm sure you can find something punk about Taylor Swift.
Yeah, exactly. I would say it's pretty punk that she continues to kick men to the curb and make more money than they will in their whole entire career. That feels punk in and of itself.
I mean, she also recently like bought the rights to her own music from a major label to put it out as she saw fit, right?
Yeah.
that's kind
Also,
of like
punk as shit. Yeah.
it's kind of punk. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people listening right now that are like, "Where is this man so we can set him on fire?" But like, deal with it, nerds.
Yeah. You don't know where this bunker is. So when did we first? We're playing. We're rocking out. We're trying to sound, like. I just realized I don't remember the guitarist name of Green Day.
Billy Joe.
Billy Joe. You're trying to sound like Billy Joe. When do you decide? You know what? This stick with chords on it would be better if there was two of them in my hand and no chords on it.
Yeah, if I could just like hit things and not have to worry about the notes.
Yeah.
Or not so much what notes I'm playing,
Exactly.
just the placement of them. It was actually what caused me to really start thinking about playing drums was the fact that all the friends I had at the time, we all played guitar or bass. There were not a lot of drummers, so it's like if I wanted to play in a band, I was going to need to do something a bit more unique. So yeah, so I don't know, I wanted to pick up the drums at that point. And thankfully my parents were
fit in.
Yeah, and thankfully my parents were supportive, and a family friend was actually a really great drummer, so he was able to start giving me private lessons, and thankfully my parents again were supportive enough to like let me practice. I could only imagine what that was like.
One day don't worry, honey, he'll just quit. One of these days he's just gonna quit. It's gonna be fine. Just like,
yeah.
Lo and behold. How old are we? 16?
At that point I think it was probably like 15 when I started to make that transition. So yeah, I only played guitar for like 2 years or so, and like I kept playing guitar here and there, but I was no longer actively pursuing like lessons and whatnot.
That's so awesome that they were supportive of you. Was this something that you thought was going to be a job and they were like about it? Were you like, this is like my like love and life, and they just wanted to support you? What at that time, how did you see music, and what did it look like for your future?
I didn't really, I never thought, how does this apply to my future? It was just, I guess, like, again, this was not an intentional like thought I had at the time, but it was more of just like an expression that I felt that was just like coming out of me naturally. I was also like really into like drawing and stuff when I was younger. And at one point, or through most of college, I was also into like painting. Specifically, I was really into graffiti. So I've always been like, I've always really held forms of expression very near and dear as like a passion. And so I don't know, it was just like I was lucky enough to be around other kids that were passionate about music, and that was like a way that we would bond. A few of the parents were nice enough to where there were a couple houses that we could, set our gear up and like go to and like play in, either a garage or like a bedroom or something. So yeah, like having that opportunity was pretty lucky and unique. Like I learned to appreciate, after like moving out and like talking to people like that, how that was just like not a normal thing. But yeah, so I don't think I ever really thought like, oh, is this a career for me? I mean, obviously like every kid playing music has those like big dreams of like, oh, I could be like a rock star or a musician or, and like the idea of getting paid to do anything that you're passionate about, I think is like very lucky. Like that is like a very special opportunity. But just the act of doing it, the opportunity to do it, I think for me was, enough.
That's so pure. Just the love of the game. Wanted to bang sticks.
Yeah. I mean, there's like definitely like elements of that got blurred. Like once I was like playing in bands, obviously there was like a lot of like, external, like external approval seeking, be that people listening to the music or like just showing up at shows or people wanting to share your stuff or whatever. Like that was definitely a thing. Like social media had like a huge impact on like, how I viewed what success was for me as a musician. Like how many listens are we getting to, how many people are sharing it or whatever. And it's like, I feel like I'm at the point now where I'm just like again appreciating the fact that I can still do it, and I can still make the conscious choice to do it or not. So
So we learned the drums at 15. When did you play your first concert? Or your first show, rather, sorry.
so I think it was in 2015, I think. 2015 or 14. Might have been 2014. But yeah, I is that right? Thinking.
So we're like about 10 years into the drums at that point?
Yeah, I'd been playing drums for a long time before I was like courageous enough to like actually try to get a band together and like write music with people. Yeah, I think that's right. I went and I saw some friends playing at a bar in San Francisco. El Rio, shout out to El Rio, great bar. But they would have live music there, and saw my friends play, and they didn't. It was just my two friends playing guitar at the time, and I was talking to them afterwards, and we're just like shooting the shit, and I was like, man, it'd sound really cool if you guys had like some percussion behind you. And one of my friends was like, yeah, but like we don't really know anyone. And then like a few minutes pass, and they're like, wait, you play drums? I was like, I do play drums.
Oh yeah, I totally do.
And at that point, that was like, I want to say third, maybe fourth year in college. So it's like, while I lived in the Bay Area, it's, not exactly the best place to like practice drums when you're sharing walls in the dorms.
With 9 people, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd actually, I hadn't really been playing a whole lot at that point. Like I would play if I ever like went home for holidays or vacation or whatever. But I didn't like have a drum kit with me at the time.
Were you just playing like drum pads, or more just like at and when you could go home?
It was like just whenever I went home, really. I think I had like a practice pad with me for when I got bored, but like even that felt like disruptive to people around me. Like I know I wouldn't want to hear someone trying to play on a practice pad. But I feel like I mean it doesn't really count for like playing a show, but like every 4th of July, it was a thing. We had some family friends that would have like this huge like block party, and they would set up all their music gear like in front of their house, and my friend's band would usually play, but then like after they would like actually play their music, like the gear was still there, so like people would just like hang out and like jam, and it was just like kind of like an open session.
Oh,
So
that's
like
so cool.
yeah, so like that was really cool and like really good for getting me accustomed to like playing really bad in front of people. Thankfully, most of the adults at that point were just like completely wasted, so it's like they're really supportive either way.
They're like, yeah.
Yeah.
He steps off the stage. Yeah. Nobody's on the stage. Yeah.
Exactly. And it was actually like years later, and I had been playing in bands at this point, and I was pretty confident in my ability. But I was back home for a block party, same scenario. But and it was my drum instructor's house that would be hosting this thing, and usually he would like, after he would kind of get tired or get too drunk, and like that's when I would step in. And it was at the point in the night where I didn't think I was going to play, so I had also been drinking more than usual. And I'm also like, I feel like there's like a confidence peak where it's like I've had enough drinks where I'm confident, and I'm kind of more in the pocket. But then there's a very steep drop off point after that, and I think I was already there. And my friend wanted to cover Blink-182's "Damn It," and I didn't really like. I knew the song well enough, but definitely, yeah, just butchered it. It was terrible. It was like abysmal. Like at first, it started off real strong, and then it just completely fell apart. And I was thinking like, oh, I'm glad that no one was recording that. So I thought.
Lo and behold.
Yeah, and it was actually like years later. Like we were living in Portland, and my buddy is like, oh, we're going somewhere together. He's like, oh, I'll drive, no problem. And so we get in his car, and he's like, oh, yeah, check out this band I just discovered. They're pretty great. And so he like puts in a CD, and he's like fast forwarding it, like trying to find a spot. I'm just like, oh, that's kind of weird. And yeah, this bastard had a recording from that. Like he had it on CD in his car and knew exactly where it was too. So yeah, so that memory has been framed for me.
So did you experience like stage fright when you first like performed, or did that like kind of okay?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was like I think this has kind of been a theme. My mom especially has been really supportive of like any creative endeavor I've had, and so she would want to like come see us play, especially like the early bands I was playing in. And
so sweet.
I wouldn't even tell her that shows were happening until afterwards because I didn't want people there.
I don't want to be famous yet. I'm not ready.
Yeah, so I was always like really scared of like messing up and then like getting in my own head and then like stumbling, because it's like when a guitarist messes up and hits the wrong chord, or it's like sour or like bends the note, it's like, oh, that's cool. It's
avant-garde.
Yeah, they're just riffing, man. But when a drummer fucks up, it's like everyone knows. Like
that was
really
weird.
Yeah, it's hard to hide.
Yeah, when you're like offbeat as a drummer, it's death. Like there's no hole dark enough or deep enough to go like crawl into.
Yeah, so that was always the fear, getting off count and trying to wrestle my way back.
That's the only place you can do that is like Belgian jazz, where you're just like, yeah, like daddy, like you just say daddy-o and then just like continue to do it. You're totally safe. Other than that, you're fucked. So that first group that you like smuggled your way into backwards is that the band that you're still with today, or is that like how many bands have you been a part of?
I think that was like 4 bands ago.
Okay.
And it was like really it was just like a group of like stoner friends that just like all had instruments, really.
As your first band should be.
Yeah, and like I don't smoke or I don't on a regular basis because I have 2 modes, not high and too high. So when
neither
it comes
do
to, like,
I. Any narcs listening?
When it comes to trying to like play music while high, it's like no, it's not. It's gonna sound closer to jazz, like really really bad jazz. But no, those guys, I played with them. Just it was not a long-lived project, but the main writer in that group, he ended up that like project went through several different forms, and eventually he was actually pretty successful, at least on a local level, with it. I managed to stay friends with him. He actually now lives in Portland as well, and so we've since reconnected, and we like to kind of laugh, looking back on like kind of what we thought were good musical ideas and like laugh about it.
That's awesome. So you've noted that you've been with multiple bands, you've been doing albums, but you also talk about a day job. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand is in this economy, there's so many people don't get to live that photogenic, that cinematic lifestyle where they, quit their day job and do this passion thing, whether it be like writing books, being in movies or TV shows, or like making commercials, or even, playing music. So much of the time it is almost like a second life sort of thing. Yeah. How financially prosperous in your experience has playing music been?
For me, it was always about being able to do it more. So like being on tour, for example, if we got door money or whatever cut we got from that night, if that was enough gas to get to the next spot, that to me that was a huge success. That might be a really basic way of looking at it. But in my opinion, I mean, we weren't, paying bills with any of the profits from the band,
Mm-hmm.
and we always just agreed that any amount of money that came from the band went directly back into the band. It just
Yeah.
kind of made sense. Um, so yeah, working the day job has always been part of the equation. Um, I will admit that, like, it's always been a nice perk to work a job that allows me to, like, clock out and then go pursue my passion. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but that being said, passion is also work. I would joke pretty often that, like, being in the band, managing the band, doing all the bookings and stuff, it was like a second job that, like,
Yeah.
just didn't pay me anything. It's like I got to play shows. That was my payment. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how I looked at it. But even that was, like, super lucky. Like, some, like, there are some days where I would, like, have panic attacks because I would just be, like, so exhausted from, like, having my shields up all day at an office job and, like, trying to just get through that and then come home and have to sit at my desk, a different desk for another handful of hours where I'm, like, basically, like, not cold calling but sending out emails to these venues that have no idea who I am, and just, like, hoping to get some kind of response so I can string together a couple dates. um so
Is that something, going back in time, if you knew this outcome, do you think you still would have tried to, like, be a part of a band and make this work
oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
for the love of the game, not to win it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, this is how I feel in general about with just life in general, is like, if you start something and you're so focused on this outcome, this goal, if you're so goal orientated, then um, everything else is gonna feel like, regardless of what it is, it's gonna feel like it's wasted.
Mm-hmm.
I think to truly succeed with something, you have to almost be in love with the process of
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah, you have to love the hustle, you have to love the grind. Um, and, like, whether that's, you know, um, band practice, sending those cold emails, um, listening to sitting through other bands sets that you have no interest in, talking to people that maybe are completely just bullshitting you. Like, there's a lot of unfun things about the process that don't seem that bad when you're just enjoying it as you're doing it, when it's not just pulling teeth.
So, if I may, and this is kind of a deep question, why go to all the effort of, like, picking dates and stuff like that, and not just, like, just doing sessions? What is the difference for you between hanging out with the homies and playing and not having to deal with the bullshit of, traveling and doing all that? Like, why does that worth it to you?
Um, I feel like at a very core level, like, I get the same, like, good brain feelings out of both. It's just like the playing a show is like the reward at the end, where you get to share the effort with
Mm.
other people, outside of your fellow musicians.
Yeah.
But, like, um, this band, Joy Press, has been, when we would practice in our studio, we would be a bit more, I want to say militant or, like, rigid, but we were, like, a bit more focused than, like, other groups I've been in before. But at the same time, we're, like, totally screwing around the whole time and, like, just joking around, doing weird improv kind of tangents and, like, making each other laugh, and then, like,
Aw.
then back to business, So
Yeah.
it's like, obviously we wouldn't do that as much, like, in front of, like, a group of people that may be paid to be there. Sometimes we would, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I guess the show, I guess, like, playing a gig is like the, like, the ritual at the end of it for me, anyways.
Hell yeah.
And then again, just like, sharing it with more people and hopefully getting more people into what you're doing.
Like kind of handing back out the joy that you've created, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole thing was like I really enjoyed creating this, so I hope you also enjoy like being a part and just like listening. And if you do, cool. And if you don't, then also fine. Hopefully you don't throw anything.
Well, we kind of do you ever refer to yourself as like a rock musician or any kind of kind of musical pronoun, I guess?
Not really. Um, it it does feel like a almost like a second life, I guess. Like something that like for example, when we moved to record the first album, I had finally landed a job in the Bay Area where I didn't have to work 3 other jobs, and I felt like I finally felt like good about that. And it was doing something I enjoyed with people that I enjoyed. And I remember quitting and putting in my notice and telling my boss that I was quitting. And she was so shocked and was like, her immediate assumption was like something had happened that made me just hate being there. And I had to explain like, no, like outside of this, like, I play music as a hobby. I play in a band, and we have a recording opportunity, so we're gonna go pursue that. And she and then she was like, "Oh my God, you're living the dream. This is awesome. That's incredible." And in the back of my head, I was like, it does not feel like it's like this is like the most irresponsible thing I've done.
Yeah.
I'm quitting a solid job, moving somewhere I've only visited, and it could fall apart pretty easily. But thankfully it didn't.
What would it take? So if somebody called you a rock star, would you correct them, or would you just like be like, yeah, thank you, or like what
No,
would you...
I would absolutely correct them and be like, no, I'm just a guy that knows how to play an instrument. Like
what would it take for you to call yourself a rock star or be acceptable with somebody else calling you like a rock star or like a rocker or something like that?
When I think of like the term rock star, I think of someone like, I don't know, like selling out stadiums or like these massive venues and stuff. I've only received insulting emails back from those venues.
What the fuck? 8 people showed up and shit on our floor.
Yeah, we actually had my friend put together a website for us for a while, and one of the tabs that we had on the website was criticisms, and it was just like quotes from either like PR people that had sometimes less than constructive criticism, or like, yeah, from hearing back from venues that like for whatever reason took the time to respond to be like, no, also fuck you. I don't know. I always thought that was, yeah. I really liked that about our website.
Fuck you. Oh, that's amazing. So we went over the misconception in this idea of like, well, you made music, you put something up on Spotify, you got dates, you're making it. No, in fact, we, work for a living. What would you say is your favorite non-obvious aspect to being in the musical sphere?
Non-musical.
No. Like your non-obvious aspect of being like a creative, somebody that makes and bangs out music.
There are a lot of things I really love about it. I mean, just like being part of a community that is supportive. I think Portland is very special in that regardless of what genre of music you're into or that you produce or you're putting out into the world, there is likely a supportive and strong community here for it. Even like being put on bills with bands that are nothing like us, like I feel like there are a lot of really great supportive people that are willing to just go to shows in Portland, especially on the local level, and just like support local talent. The venues also are pretty supportive, which is great. So like that community aspect is something that I really like. I think also like the community that is um like the touring musician, and just like going out of your way for someone that you've never met before and might not hang out with like after that, like just like giving someone a couch, trying to help someone find a show in town. We at one point we hung out with this guy who was touring from somewhere in the Midwest. I had never met them before, and they like joined us for Thanksgiving, like because there was like nowhere for them to play that night, so they just like kind of hung out.
Aww.
Just like stuff like that. Like it means a lot when you're the one who's needing a couch or a floor to sleep on. So like being able to like push that forward has always been pretty important to me. I think yeah, just like being on tour. Like I haven't been on, going back to the whole like keeping your day job thing. Like I haven't had the luxury of like leaving for like 2 months, 3 months, going on like an international tour. But just like leaving town for like a string of shows and like being able to travel like with your band, maybe a second band or a third, and just like having that camaraderie like in a van and like all you have to do for the next however many days is just like hang out with your friends and play music. Like
Hang
that's
out with the homies.
yeah. So that's something I really really love about it. It's also like I've talked to friends that like the whole like driving like through gaps of just like the middle of nowhere and sitting in a car like bored as hell is like the worst part about it for them. But I don't know, I kind of love it.
Awesome. So before we move on to our next topic, I'm kind of curious, what, if anything, is on your bucket list as far as being a musician and a bandmate?
So as I mentioned during the pandemic, I started picking up piano and learning more about music theory and just like generally like production in Ableton. So I've been working on I guess like a almost like a solo project, just like producing my own music, and also just like being responsible for all the instrumentation that goes along with that.
Yeah.
So I think my next goal is to put out like a just like a short EP of music that's just like from me.
Sweet.
Yeah, and actually like sing that through to the end, because I feel like there's probably countless number of people out there who have Ableton installed that have like this giant massive folder of like half finished scraps that
Yeah.
like never see the light of day, and I would like to be able to actually put something out.
Well, I hope you're able to chase that dream down.
Hey man, thanks.
Going from the happy to the horrible, Chase, what is your preposterous peeve?
Yeah. So this one it's a new thing that I've realized that it's kind of developed, I think from working in I guess this probably comes from work environments. But when people like overuse buzzwords, like
What?
when they like clearly don't know what the fuck they're talking about, it drives me insane. And this probably is not a great trait that I have, but usually the way I respond to it is by like going along with it, but just like very sarcastically. And sometimes they don't pick up on what I'm doing, but they start to agree with me. They'll be saying something. I'm like, yeah, teamwork, synergy, optimize, yeah, for sure. So that I would say that's quite the peeve of mine, because it's like just say you don't know what you're talking about. It's okay. We can come together and we'll figure it out. But if you keep spewing nonsense, it's you're just making more work for everyone listening to you right now.
When did you first notice this thing? Like, how long ago was it that you was like, the fuck?
It was a couple of years back when I would talk to people about, I guess, like, let's see, how do I frame this? I would have to, for a previous job, I would have to speak to non-technical people about the technology that they were selling. And like sales guys.
Sure.
And if they said like data like more than like 2-3 times in like the first 5 minutes, then my brain would just shut off and I'd be like, okay, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. That I think that was yeah. I mean, like eventually I found a meme from Pimp My Ride. It was, yo dog, I heard you like data, so I got some data so you could put data on top of your data while you data. And like that's like how I felt talking to some of these people, and it just like drove me nuts because it's like I have to sit here with a straight face
and be like,
so yeah, that is still something that like drives me nuts.
Do you have a particular story of when this peeve shone the brightest?
It's more of a reoccurring theme. I feel like once a week it happens.
Still?
Yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, but no, I try to laugh about it more now and just not take it so personally. Again, like I'd much rather be the person in the room who's saying like, I don't know what that means. Can you please like actually explain it to me, rather than just blowing smoke and looking foolish to everyone else on the call. That being said, I've definitely had to go back and admit like, yeah, so like I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. So like, can we revisit that now?
That's so awesome. All right, with that, we're gonna head to our second ad break, but don't go anywhere because when we get back, Chase is gonna enter the lightning round. This podcast is sponsored by Irrationally. One of the easiest things you can do with your hands and a light source in a dark room. Over human history, millions of people have used Irrationally to great enjoyment. With limitless possibility and no upfront costs, Irrationally will have your hands busy forever. Or until the power comes back on. So what are you waiting for? The power to go out? Oh yeah, right. Okay. Well, but when it does, we'll see you and your rational puppets on the wall. And we're back. Chase, are you ready to enter lightning round?
The lightning round?
I'm ready.
All right. Buckle your seatbelts and keep your arms inside the ride at all times. Chase, is there a price for you to give up your passion
Forever?
Nope.
Make the food or do the dishes?
I always do the dishes.
Did you ever cheat on a test in school?
Oh yeah.
Are you out of touch, or is it the children who are wrong?
I'm probably out of touch. I don't pay attention enough.
Would you rather have your inner monologue sound like Gilbert Gottfried or Fran Drescher?
Ooh, Gilbert Gottfried for sure.
Is professional wrestling cool or lame?
Now all my thoughts are just Gilbert. It's cool.
That's cool!
Yeah, exactly.
Would you rather read the cue cards while wearing the crown or live in a hovel and speak your mind?
I see. I think hovel. Yeah, I'm gonna take the hovel.
You're having the best day of your life. What happens next? Another amazing thing or something terrible?
I believe in law of attraction. Something awesome. The awesome keeps just coming on. It just keeps happening.
Nick Cage, best or worst ever?
Best. Easy.
Clearly. Do you create your own thoughts or do you just listen to them?
Uh, Unfortunately, I think I create them.
Album, shuffle, or playlist?
Album.
Would you rather the checkout line never had a line or the fast food place always gave you a large fry when you ordered a medium?
Checkout line, never have a line.
Would you rather have the superpower to travel into the vastness of space or the darkness of the ocean depths?
Oh, space for sure. I have an irrational fear of large bodies of water. Fun fact. I think there's a name for that. I have it. And fuck that.
It's called being a sensible human.
There we go.
Is there
that's
such
what I thought it was.
Is there such a thing as a perfect piece of art?
No, because it's always going to be subjective.
Have you ever had a crush on a cartoon character?
I think as a kid, yeah, probably.
What is more important, freedom or structure?
I think freedom.
Would you rather your last meal be a Whopper with cheese, onion rings, and a Sprite, or a 3-piece chicken strip with mashed potatoes, gravy, a biscuit, and Dr. Pepper?
I'll take the Whopper and the onion rings.
Will we make it to an interplanetary species, or will we destroy ourselves?
I fucking hope so. I'm gonna take the optimist route here and say yes, I think we will. I just don't know if the form of that is gonna be beneficial for everyone or for the Bezos family.
Would you rather be the best underpaid actor or the best underpaid dancer in the world?
Actor.
Would you rather have tentacle arms or kangaroo legs?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's go kangaroo legs. I think that'd be funny.
Would you rather spend 2 years in jail or live with an ex for 6 months?
Depends on the X, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that one.
Roll the dice.
Yeah. If it was a random X, literally rolling the dice, yeah, I'd probably still take that.
Sippy cup or straw?
Straw.
Could you eat 37 of your favorite food for $5,000 in a 1-hour time limit?
Oh, no. Too much of anything's a bad thing.
Well, congratulations. You've survived the lightning round.
Yay.
Now, before we move on, I, like many listeners, would like to now know, what is your favorite food that you couldn't eat 37 of it for $5,000 in a 1-hour time limit?
I think, this is kind of bland, but I think pizza. Like, pizza is just a great topping delivery device. So it could really just be whatever you want.
Nice double entendre with delivery in there.
Yeah. So, totally intentional, by the way.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Portland has a lot of interesting options for pizza. So
True facts.
Yeah. So yeah.
Well, as a reward for being honest and answering all the questions, Chase, you may now ask me and in turn future guests your lightning round question.
Okay. So this question is inspired by a trip that I'm about to take with some friends to a location called Skinwalker Ranch, if you've ever heard of it.
That sounds sketch as fuck.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be. Look it up, Google it with that new life hack I taught you. Anyways, would you rather discover a ghost or an alien?
We talked about this question earlier and I still hadn't thought of an answer. Ghost, because then I know there's something after death. Like, unlocking the definitiveness of spirituality is far more interesting to me than knowing that there's other life forms, because it feels like there's gotta be, and I'm not sure I want to meet them, because it's either going to be sad, they're going to be like yokels that just have found better gas than we did, and they accidentally put it in like their vehicle, and like they land here and they're just like, well, I'm me, where am I? And there's like, these are aliens. Or they're going to be like far beyond us and we're fucked. I'm not ready for science fiction this quickly, but like ghosts, like, cool. I hope, I don't know, but that feels better.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
What about you?
I almost don't want ghosts to be real. So it's like, I'm almost like, I feel like the logic part of my brain is like, aliens makes more sense, so let's go with that.
Sure.
But yeah, so I'll say aliens.
Right on. Well, as we come to a close here, is there anything you want to plug, shout out, places people can find you or your content?
I don't know how much content you're gonna find. Having recently just come back to Instagram and social media. But
well, if you go on Spotify and look up Joy Press.
Yes, you can find my band Joy Press. We are also on all social medias. We eventually will have an album coming out, so you can look forward to that.
A second album, right? Because you got, I'm looking, there's one called Here On Out.
Yeah, and that was what we did as soon as we moved to Portland. And so we've had something in the works for what feels like forever now, but are hopefully nearing the end of that endeavor. So hopefully releasing that soon-ish. We'll see. And yeah, once that's out, it will be all over everything that we have. I think that's all I have to plug. I don't know.
All right, well, do you have any friends that you'd like to nominate to come on this podcast so they too can suffer as you have today?
Yeah. So Emily Fromm is a really good friend of mine. She is an amazing artist based out of San Francisco. I would recommend checking out her artwork, emilyfromm.com. You can also catch one of her pieces in, I think it's Terminal 1 of SFO if you fly
whoa, that's cool.
Southwest, I think. Yeah. So yeah, that's who I'm gonna nominate.
Hell yeah.
Emily is cool, much cooler than me. So I'll nominate.
All right, high bar to leave up to, Emily, but we're coming for you. Well, thank you, Chase, for being my guest today, and a special thanks to my editor, Richard Ashford, and my composer, Joshua Gibbons. And thank you. Yes, you listening at home, ever you found time to appreciate this. Time is the most precious commodity we have, and I appreciate you spending yours with us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, or just share it with a friend. Every little bit helps. Or if you already have and are out of episodes to listen to, don't worry. We put out a new episode every Monday at midnight on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes at Passion People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And a very special thanks are due to our patrons, Sabella Yellow. If you'd like to join said illustrious ranks and have your name read aloud, just head on over to patreon.com/Passionate People and Preposterous Peeves Podcast. And remember, folks, if days are numbered and songs are sung, at the end of the day, I think we've all won. So please stick around, because great things have only just begun.